Before the day you were told who to become, you already possessed everything you needed to live a meaningful life. But little by little, the voices around you became louder than the voice within you. You learned to smile when you wanted to cry. You learned to agree when your heart whispered no. You learned to shape your identity around expectations instead of truth. And without realizing it, you began living not for yourself, but for the approval of others. This is how freedom quietly disappears. Not through chains you can see, but through invisible habits that convince you your value depends on acceptance. You begin measuring your worth by applause, your success by recognition, and your happiness by the opinions of people who may never truly understand you. The greatest tragedy is not that others judge you. The greatest tragedy is that you start judging yourself through their eyes. Look carefully at your life. How many decisions have you made simply because you feared disappointing someone? How many dreams have remained untouched because you worried about criticism? How many times have you remained silent when your soul wanted to speak? Every search for approval demands a sacrifice, and the price is always the same. It costs you your authenticity. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they must ask a difficult question. Who am I when nobody is watching? Who am I when there is no applause, no validation, no praise, and no permission? Because that person, the one who exists in complete silence, is your real self. Everything else is only a mask designed to survive the expectations of the world. Understand this deeply. People will always have opinions. If you succeed, some will envy you. If you fail, some will criticize you. If you remain silent, they will misunderstand you. If you speak boldly, they will challenge you. Trying to satisfy everyone is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. Real strength is not found in convincing others to accept you. Real strength is found in accepting yourself so completely that rejection no longer controls your choices. Freedom begins the moment you stop asking for permission to become who you were always meant to be. The world teaches you to seek approval, because approval creates dependence. But wisdom teaches something entirely different. Wisdom reminds you that peace does not come from being admired. Peace comes from knowing that your conscience is clear, your intentions are honest, and your actions are aligned with your deepest values. A person who knows this cannot be manipulated by praise or destroyed by criticism. Imagine waking up every morning without wondering what others think of your decisions. Imagine speaking honestly without rehearsing every word, out of fear of judgment. Imagine walking your own path with quiet confidence, knowing that your purpose does not require universal agreement. This is not arrogance. This is inner freedom. The strongest people are often misunderstood because they no longer shape themselves to fit every expectation. They understand that respect earned by pretending is temporary, but self-respect built through authenticity lasts a lifetime. They have discovered that losing the approval of others is far less painful than losing themselves. Perhaps you have spent years carrying invisible burdens that were never yours to carry. Expectations from family, pressure from society, comparisons with strangers, the constant need to prove that you are enough. But what if the life you truly desire begins the moment you stop proving anything? What if everything changes not because the world changes, but because you finally stop giving it the authority to define your worth? Today is an invitation, not to fight the world, but to free yourself from it. Not by escaping responsibility, but by releasing unnecessary dependence on validation. The quieter your need for approval becomes, the louder your inner wisdom begins to speak. And once you hear that voice clearly, You will realize it has been guiding you all along, because the greatest transformation in life does not happen when everyone believes in you. It happens when you no longer need them to. That is the beginning of courage. That is the birth of peace. And that is the wisdom of true inner freedom. From the moment we enter the world, we naturally seek connection. As children, approval is necessary because it helps us survive, learn, and feel safe. A smile from a parent, encouragement from a teacher, or acceptance from friends teaches us that we belong. There is nothing wrong with this. The problem begins when this healthy desire for connection slowly transforms into an unhealthy dependence on validation. Without noticing, we stop asking ourselves what is right and begin asking what will be accepted. We stop listening to our inner voice and become experts at reading the expectations of everyone else. This is how the hidden prison is built, not with walls of stone, but with habits of fear, doubt, and constant comparison. Many people spend years believing they are making independent choices, yet their decisions are quietly controlled by the need to be liked. They choose careers that impress others instead of fulfilling themselves. They remain in relationships that no longer nourish them because they fear criticism or loneliness. They hide their opinions to avoid conflict, even when silence betrays their deepest values. Every compromise may seem small, but over time, these compromises become a life that no longer feels authentic. They wake each morning carrying a weight they cannot explain because the person they present to the world is no longer the person they truly are. Seeking approval creates an endless cycle because the standards of other people never remain the same. Someone who praises you today may criticize you tomorrow. One group may celebrate your success while another dismisses it completely. If your peace depends on external opinions, your emotional state will rise and fall with every compliment and every criticism. You become like a leaf carried by the wind, moving in whichever direction the opinions of others happen to blow. Instead of standing firmly on your own principles, you become reactive, adjusting your behavior to avoid rejection rather than pursuing what is meaningful. This invisible prison also steals your courage. Every opportunity becomes a question of how it will appear rather than whether it is worth pursuing. You hesitate before speaking honestly because you imagine disapproval. You avoid taking bold steps because failure might invite judgment. Creativity fades because originality always risks misunderstanding. Dreams remain untouched because they require the willingness to disappoint those who cannot see your vision. The desire for approval convinces you that safety is found in conformity, yet the greatest achievements in life have always required someone to step beyond the comfort of acceptance. Comparison strengthens these invisible chains. Modern life constantly invites you to measure yourself against carefully edited versions of other people's lives. You begin believing that your happiness depends on matching their achievements, appearance, possessions, or recognition. Instead of appreciating your own journey, you become obsessed with proving your worth. This race has no finish line because there will always be someone richer, more talented, more attractive, or more successful. Chasing approval through comparison is like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. The more you consume, the more empty you become. Another danger of seeking approval is that it disconnects you from your intuition. Deep within every person exists a quiet wisdom that recognizes truth without needing applause. Yet this inner guidance becomes difficult to hear when your mind is filled with the voices of everyone else. Every decision becomes crowded by imagined opinions. You begin wondering how others will react before asking yourself what genuinely aligns with your values. Slowly, your confidence weakens, because confidence grows from trusting your own judgment, not from collecting the approval of strangers. Ironically, the more desperately someone seeks approval, the less secure they become. Even praise loses its ability to satisfy because it must constantly be renewed. Yesterday's compliment no longer feels enough. Today's recognition creates tomorrow's expectation. Life becomes exhausting because you are performing instead of living. Every interaction feels like an audition, every achievement feels temporary, and every criticism feels like proof that you are not enough. This constant emotional dependence drains your energy and distracts you from discovering who you are beneath the need to impress others. Freedom begins when you recognize that approval is unpredictable, temporary, and ultimately outside your control. Your responsibility is not to manage the opinions of others, but to manage the integrity of your own actions. You cannot prevent misunderstanding, criticism, or rejection, but you can choose honesty over performance, purpose over popularity, and self-respect over constant validation. As these choices become stronger, the invisible prison begins to weaken, and the quiet confidence that has always existed beneath the fear slowly starts to emerge, revealing a life that is no longer defined by the permission of others, but guided by the unwavering certainty of your own character. The moment you begin accepting yourself without conditions, a quiet transformation starts to unfold within you. It does not happen through loud declarations or dramatic changes. It happens in silence, where your relationship with yourself becomes stronger than your dependence on the opinions of others. Most people spend years believing that confidence comes after they are praised, respected, or admired. In reality, confidence grows when you stop waiting for permission to value yourself. Self-acceptance is not about believing you are perfect. It is about recognizing your imperfections without allowing them to define your worth. Many people live as though their value is something that must be earned. They believe they will finally deserve peace after achieving enough success, reaching a certain appearance, or receiving enough recognition. This belief creates an endless pursuit because every milestone simply gives birth to another expectation. Satisfaction becomes temporary, and happiness is postponed. The mind keeps whispering that one more accomplishment, one more compliment, or one more victory will finally make everything feel complete. Yet the feeling never lasts because the foundation is built on external validation rather than inner acceptance. True inner freedom begins when you understand that your worth has never depended on your achievements or the approval of others. Your accomplishments can grow, your circumstances can change, people's opinions can shift overnight, but your value as a human being remains untouched. When you deeply understand this, failure no longer destroys your identity, and success no longer inflates your ego. Both become experiences that teach you rather than labels that define you. Self-acceptance also requires honesty. It asks you to look at yourself without denial and without unnecessary criticism. There are qualities within you that deserve appreciation, and there are weaknesses that require discipline and growth. Accepting yourself does not mean refusing to improve. It means improving from a place of self-respect instead of self-hatred. A person who constantly insults themselves cannot build lasting confidence because every achievement is overshadowed by the belief that they are never enough. Growth becomes healthier when it is motivated by purpose instead of shame. One of the greatest obstacles to self-acceptance is comparison. The moment you compare your journey to someone else's, you begin overlooking everything that makes your own path meaningful. Every individual carries different experiences, different struggles, different strengths, and different responsibilities. Measuring your life against another person's timeline only creates unnecessary suffering. The tree does not envy the mountain, and the river does not compete with the sky. Nature grows according to its own rhythm, yet human beings often abandon their own pace because they believe someone else's progress determines their own value. There is also a quiet strength that appears when you stop apologizing for who you are. This does not mean becoming arrogant or ignoring the feelings of others. It means no longer shrinking your personality simply to make people comfortable. It means expressing your thoughts respectfully without fearing disagreement. It means pursuing your purpose even when others fail to understand it. The more you accept yourself, the less energy you waste pretending to be someone else. Authenticity replaces performance, and peace replaces constant anxiety. Life will always present moments when you are criticized, misunderstood, or rejected. These experiences become unbearable only when your identity depends on universal acceptance. A person who accepts themselves understands that disagreement is part of life. They listen with humility, learn when correction is necessary and necessary, and release opinions that do not reflect truth. Their emotional stability no longer rises and falls with every judgment, because their foundation exists within rather than outside themselves. Self-acceptance also transforms your relationships. When you no longer seek constant validation, you stop treating people as sources of approval and begin appreciating them as companions on your journey. Love becomes less about filling an emptiness and more about sharing a fullness. Conversations become more honest because you are no longer speaking merely to impress. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by principles instead of fear. Even solitude begins to feel peaceful rather than frightening because you discover that your own presence is enough. This quiet acceptance does not remove every challenge from your life, nor does it guarantee that others will always understand your choices. Instead, it gives you something far more valuable, a stable center that remains calm, regardless of praise or criticism. From this place, your actions become intentional, your words become sincere, and your direction becomes clearer, because you are no longer trying to become someone worthy of love, respect, or peace, but living each day from the understanding that these qualities begin with the relationship you cultivate with yourself and are strengthened every time you choose truth over approval, authenticity over performance, and inner conviction over external validation. One of the greatest tests of inner strength is learning to be misunderstood without feeling the need to defend yourself. Most people fear misunderstanding more than failure because they believe their identity depends on how accurately others perceive them. They spend countless hours explaining their intentions, justifying their choices, and seeking reassurance that they are seen in the right light. Yet no amount of explanation can guarantee that everyone will understand you. Every person interprets the world through the lens of their own experiences, beliefs, fears, and expectations. What seems obvious to you may appear completely different to someone else. Accepting this reality is the beginning of true courage. The desire to be understood often disguises itself as kindness or responsibility, but beneath it can hide a deep fear of rejection. You may believe that if people only knew your reasons, they would approve of your decisions. Sometimes they will, often they will not. There will always be those who misunderstand your silence as weakness, your confidence as arrogance, your boundaries as selfishness, or your ambition as pride. If your peace depends on correcting every false impression, you will spend your life fighting battles that can never truly be won. Courage is not found in convincing everyone that you are right. Courage is found in remaining faithful to your values, even when others question them. It means acting with integrity, without expecting immediate recognition. It means choosing what is true over what is popular. History repeatedly shows that many individuals who brought meaningful change were first criticized, doubted, or rejected. They did not continue because everyone agreed with them. They continued because they believed their purpose mattered more than public opinion. There is a quiet freedom that appears when you stop treating misunderstanding as a personal attack. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, you begin to understand that people can only see from where they stand. Someone who has never experienced your struggles cannot fully appreciate your decisions. Someone driven by fear may judge courage as recklessness. Someone attached to comfort may misunderstand discipline as unnecessary hardship. Their interpretation reflects their perspective, not your reality. Being misunderstood also teaches emotional discipline. Your first impulse may be to defend yourself immediately, to explain every detail, or to prove your innocence. But wisdom asks a different question. Is this explanation truly necessary? Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every criticism requires a defense. Sometimes silence protects your peace better than the most carefully constructed argument. Silence is not surrender. It is the confidence to recognize that your character will reveal the truth more effectively than endless words. This does not mean ignoring genuine misunderstandings in important relationships. Honest communication has great value when both people sincerely seek understanding. The courage to be misunderstood is not an excuse for emotional distance or poor communication. Rather, it is the wisdom to distinguish between conversations that create clarity and arguments that only feed the ego. There are moments when speaking is an act of love, and there are moments when remaining silent is an act of self-respect. Another reason people fear being misunderstood is because they confuse reputation with identity. Reputation belongs to the opinions of others. Identity belongs to your own conscience. Reputation can change in a single conversation, a rumor, or a misunderstanding. Identity is built through consistent choices, honest actions, and unwavering principles. If you protect your reputation at the expense of your integrity, you may gain temporary approval while losing yourself. But if you protect your integrity, your inner peace remains intact, even when your reputation is questioned. The courage to be misunderstood also strengthens independence. It teaches you to make decisions based on wisdom rather than applause. Whether you choose a different career, set healthy boundaries, walk away from unhealthy relationships, or pursue an uncommon dream, someone will likely question your choices. If you wait until everyone agrees, you will never move forward. Every meaningful path requires the willingness to stand alone for a time, trusting that truth does not become false simply because it is unpopular. As this courage grows, fear slowly loses its influence. You become less concerned with controlling how people perceive you and more committed to living honestly. Your energy shifts from managing appearances to developing character. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision or defend every action, because your confidence comes from alignment between your values and your behavior. Each day becomes an opportunity to practice quiet conviction, allowing your life itself to become the explanation that words could never fully provide, while accepting that some people may never understand your journey, your intentions, or your purpose. and choosing to walk forward anyway with calmness, dignity, and unwavering trust in the truth you carry within yourself. One of the most liberating moments in life arrives when you realize that your worth cannot be measured by the opinions of other people. Until that moment, it is easy to believe that compliments increase your value and criticism diminishes it. You begin to carry an invisible scale, constantly weighing yourself against the reactions, expectations, and judgments of those around you. A kind word lifts your spirit, while a harsh opinion shakes your confidence. Over time, your emotional stability becomes dependent on forces completely outside your control. This is not freedom. It is quiet dependence, disguised as social acceptance. The opinions of others are constantly changing because people themselves are constantly changing. Their moods, experiences, personal struggles, beliefs, and preferences influence the way they see the world. Someone may admire you today and overlook you tomorrow. Another person may criticize you simply because your choices remind them of the opportunities they never had the courage to pursue. If your identity is built upon these shifting perspectives, your sense of self will never remain steady. You will spend your life trying to satisfy expectations that continue to move further away. Detaching your worth from external opinions does not mean ignoring feedback or believing you have nothing to learn. Wisdom welcomes constructive criticism because growth requires humility. The difference lies in understanding that feedback should shape your actions when it is truthful, but it should never determine your value as a human being. You can make mistakes without becoming a failure. You can experience rejection without becoming unworthy. You can face criticism without believing you are broken. Your actions may require improvement, but your existence does not require permission. Many people unknowingly tie their self-worth to achievement. They believe they are valuable only when they are productive, successful, admired, or useful. The moment they experience failure, they begin questioning themselves rather than simply evaluating the situation. This creates unnecessary suffering because life naturally includes seasons of success and seasons of struggle. If your value rises with success and falls with failure, you will always fear taking meaningful risks. Every challenge becomes dangerous because it threatens not only your goals, but also your identity. There is great peace in separating who you are from what you accomplish. Achievements are expressions of your effort, discipline, and opportunity, but they are not the foundation of your worth. A tree remains a tree whether it bears fruit this season or not. In the same way, your value remains constant even during moments when progress feels slow or invisible. This understanding allows you to work hard without becoming emotionally attached to every outcome. You pursue excellence because it reflects your character, not because it proves your importance. Another powerful step toward inner freedom is learning to appreciate yourself in private. The modern world often encourages people to seek recognition before feeling satisfied. Every accomplishment seems incomplete unless someone notices it. Every act of kindness feels less meaningful unless it receives acknowledgement. Yet the strongest confidence is built in moments that nobody else sees. It grows through promises you keep to yourself, habits you practice consistently, and decisions you make because they align with your principles rather than because they attract attention. Character develops in silence long before it becomes visible to the world. Detaching from other people's opinions also changes the way you approach relationships. Instead of constantly seeking approval, you begin offering sincerity. You stop adjusting your personality to fit every environment and instead remain grounded in your values. This authenticity naturally attracts people who appreciate the real you while allowing those who expect constant performance to drift away. Although this may reduce the number of people who approve of you, it greatly increases the quality of the relationships that remain. There will always be moments when people misunderstand your intentions or disagree with your decisions. Some may question your dreams, criticize your boundaries, or doubt your abilities. If your peace depends on changing their minds, you surrender control of your emotional well-being. But when your worth comes from within, disagreement no longer becomes a threat. You listen carefully, reflect honestly, accept what is useful, and release what does not align with truth. Your confidence becomes quiet rather than defensive because it is no longer built upon constant validation. As this inner foundation becomes stronger, your choices become clearer. You no longer ask whether everyone will approve before taking action. Instead, you ask whether your decision reflects honesty, integrity, compassion, and purpose. This shift transforms the way you live because your motivation is no longer driven by applause, but by alignment with your deepest values. Each step forward becomes an expression of inner conviction rather than a request for acceptance, allowing you to experience a lasting sense of peace that cannot be increased by praise or diminished by criticism, because the source of your worth has moved from the changing voices of the world to the unshakable certainty that exists within your own heart. To live authentically without fear of judgment is one of the highest expressions of inner freedom. It is not about becoming careless toward others or refusing wise advice. It is about reaching a place where your decisions are guided by truth instead of approval, by purpose instead of popularity, and by conviction instead of fear. Most people are not living according to who they truly are. They are living according to who they believe they must become in order to be accepted. They wear invisible masks in different situations, changing their words, opinions, and even their dreams depending on who is watching. Although these masks may create temporary comfort, they slowly distance a person from their genuine self. Authenticity begins with honesty. Before you can be truthful with the world, you must first be truthful with yourself. This requires the courage to acknowledge your strengths without arrogance and your weaknesses without shame. It asks you to recognize your values, your principles, and the direction your heart genuinely wishes to follow. Many people never take this step because they are too busy trying to meet expectations that were never truly theirs. They spend years climbing ladders they never wanted to climb, chasing goals they never chose, and carrying burdens they never needed to carry. One day they reach the destination they believed would bring happiness, only to realize they have become strangers to themselves. Fear of judgment often becomes the greatest obstacle to authenticity. The mind imagines endless possibilities of criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding. It convinces you that speaking honestly is dangerous, that following your own path is selfish, or that standing apart from the crowd will leave you isolated. Yet these fears usually exist more vividly in imagination than in reality. Even when judgment does occur, it rarely has the lasting power we give it. Most people are deeply occupied with their own concerns, their own insecurities, and their own lives. The opinions that seem overwhelming today are often forgotten tomorrow, while the regret of abandoning your true self can remain for years. Living authentically does not mean every decision will be understood. There will be moments when family questions your choices, friends disagree with your direction, or strangers criticize your actions. This is part of every meaningful journey. No path of purpose has ever received universal approval. If you require complete agreement before taking action, you will remain standing at the beginning of your journey forever. Authentic living requires accepting that misunderstanding is not always a sign that you are wrong. Sometimes it is simply evidence that you are walking a path others cannot yet see. Authenticity also requires responsibility. It is not an excuse for selfishness or harshness. Being true to yourself should never become a reason to ignore kindness, compassion, or respect. Inner freedom grows strongest when honesty is balanced with humility. You can disagree without becoming disrespectful. You can set boundaries without becoming cold. You can pursue your purpose without diminishing the value of others. True confidence does not demand attention because it is secure within itself. There is remarkable peace in no longer performing for the approval of others. You stop measuring every word before speaking it. You stop pretending to enjoy what does not inspire you. You stop apologizing for having healthy boundaries or meaningful ambitions. Instead of constantly asking whether people will like you, you begin asking whether your actions reflect your deepest values. This single shift transforms the quality of your life because your energy is no longer spent maintaining an image. It is invested in becoming a person of integrity. Authenticity also changes the way you experience failure and success. Failure becomes a lesson rather than a verdict because you know you remained faithful to yourself. Success becomes meaningful because it reflects genuine effort instead of performance. You no longer seek recognition to feel complete because your satisfaction comes from living in alignment with your conscience. Whether people applaud or criticize, your direction remains steady because it is rooted in principles that do not change with public opinion. As this way of living becomes natural, fear slowly loses its influence. Decisions become clearer, relationships become more sincere, and daily life becomes lighter because you are no longer carrying the exhausting burden of trying to be everything for everyone. You recognize that your responsibility is not to control how others perceive you, but to cultivate wisdom, discipline, compassion, and honesty within yourself. Every day becomes another opportunity to express your true character through quiet actions rather than loud declarations, allowing your life to become a reflection of inner freedom where courage replaces fear, truth replaces performance, and every choice is guided by the unwavering voice of your own conscience, rather than the changing expectations and judgments of the world around you.